Gaming Institute podcast, episode number 30. My name is Ben Gothard, your host, and today we are with the one, the only, the original NFT archaeologist, Mr. Adam McBride. How are you doing today, Adam?
Bro, so nice to be here. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
So we were talking before the show actually started, and you're a podcaster, you're an author, so you're usually on the other side of the other side of the mic. Excited to have you on the show here today. I appreciate you hopping on the other side of the mic for a change.
Dude, I love being on this side of the mic. This side's the mic's just like fun, man. You don't have to think. You just ramble. It's awesome, man. This is my game. I love this.
Awesome. So I want to hop right in because I'm fascinated by this idea of NFT archaeology. I think every kid grew up loving dinosaurs. At least, I did. And, the idea of now NFTs having the same opportunity to have their own history and to dig into it. I don't even know what it means, which is why I wanted to chat with you, why I'm so excited. But maybe you could break down for us, like, what does that actually mean? And then I'd love to also hear your story of how you got into this whole space and became the original NFT archaeologist.
Sure. I mean, basically with the boom in NFTs, I mean, I was kind of relaunched. I knew about NFTs back when like CryptoPunks went off in 2017. So I was familiar with NFTs, although I don't think we called them NFTs back then, but I kind of knew about this idea of a digital collectible. And it made sense to me because I think kind of human nature, we all kind of connect with collectibles, right? Well, I'm sure when you were like in dinosaurs, when you were a kid, you probably had a couple plastic dinosaurs floating around in your bedroom, right? It was like
not a couple,
right?
It was a lot.
You're right.
And Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and the little army people. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. So NFTs made sense to me intuitively years ago, but early this year, basically in March of this year, they kind of re-exploded for me and just completely took over my life when these rediscovery of older projects took place. And so to give the brief 30-second overview, basically people have been doing these digital collectibles for years, basically since like 2014 on Bitcoin, Namecoin, other blockchains, and then they started on Ethereum. And these projects were done on Ethereum in 2015, 16, 17, and basically just faded away because nobody was interested in them at the time. But with the explosion of NFTs early in 2021, these old projects basically were rediscovered. And when it happened in March for me, there were a couple of early projects that were rediscovered then, Curio cards, mainly Etheria and Mooncats, all within like a 7-day period. These projects were all kind of rediscovered.
Wow.
And I said to myself, holy cow, there's literally like gold in that blockchain. Like all you got to do is go back and like find some of these old, people are going to value them and they have value. And so what I've dedicated, the last is basically researching, trying to find some of these old projects, connect with the developers that built them back in the day and kind of relaunch them and tell people about them and tell them why they were important. And it was not that hard to be important back then because they were literally breaking ground. They were literally doing things that hadn't been done before. The modern NFT that we take for granted today, the latest whatever Buzzed Bear or CryptoCat or whatever the heck's going on today,
Right.
all have their roots in these early projects, which kind of figured it all out for everybody. And so relaunching these projects has been a real joy over the last 8-9 months.
That's unbelievably cool. A quick aside on the technology here. Y'all may see a little bit of fuzziness on the screen. We are doing this obviously remotely, and we are experiencing the teeniest bit of technical issues. So just pay attention to the audio. Don't worry as much about the video for this one, and make sure to stick around because this content's going to be incredible. So
I am in Costa Rica, so my apologies for my third world internet to everybody.
Well, this is the beauty.
Although I pay like $300 a month for the best internet in Costa Rica, there is no guarantees, man.
Well, this is the beauty of technology today, is that we can do this, even though I'm in the US, you're in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful thing. So
absolutely, bro. I'm 100%.
So I'm curious about this idea of like jumping back into history and kind of understanding the historical significance of something and that then having a value today. And I think this is going to be really, really, really times infinity important for crypto gaming because you're going to have different characters, different types of characters, different types of items that are created today in games that eventually these games will become some of the ubiquitous worlds that we live in. And then the items that were the original founding items of these games will become ridiculously, crazily important. So I just kind of want to tie that into the crypto gaming side.
Yeah.
But let's
If
talk,
I could make a comment there, I mean, I
please.
think,
Yeah.
myself and those of us who are into kind of this NFT archaeology space who have made, bets or investments in these assets, truly believe that while not fully formed yet and not fully figured out, um, this idea of these are literally assets that can be used across platforms, across games, um, in ways that we don't even literally can't even imagine yet, are going to hold a special place. And the thing is, right now, you and I can both go mint a million NFTs right now, right?
Right.
But you can't mint any more that were happening in 2017 or 2016 or 2015, right? So it gives it this automatic rarity by age, which I think,
Mhm.
from my perspective, and people who kind of believe the same thing I do, gives them a special place. So yeah, how we all move forward. That's what your podcast is all about, right? We're all creating this future as we go, and it's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited, and it's the entire reason why I believe these historical projects hold tremendous value is because the future is so bright. Like, what is being built is going to be so incredible, and we're really just in maybe the first inning of the ball game right now.
Totally. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I want to dive back because this is to me this is a story of history, and we can then study the history to make predictions about the future, which I'm excited to kind of drive the conversation there later on. But when we think about back in the early days of the very first NFTs that came out, how are they different from today? I don't know. I'm not an NFT expert.
Sure.
That's you are. That's why I wanted to bring you on. What did that actually look like back then, and how are they different than today's NFTs?
Absolutely. So there are quite a few differences. Like, the first ones you'll see are basically on a blockchain you probably never even heard of. It's called Namecoin. So it was like one of these first efforts at a functioning blockchain, that would hold more than just a coin. Like, Bitcoin's obviously the first. We all know Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was meant to be like just a currency or just a store of value.
Right.
But people recognize this idea of what a blockchain can actually do far beyond that, which is store digital items and basically track ownership of items. And so people were making these first attempts to do that, and most of the people were artists. So it happened on Namecoin. Happened. Artists who recognized this could take their work and tie basically the provenance of a piece of art to the blockchain. But Namecoin, as I said, they're kind of figuring all these things out. Namecoin had one major problem, and that was the people who built Namecoin did it in the same way that URLs are done. So if you go and you claim the URL google.com, you have to renew it every year, or you can renew it for 100 years or whatever, but it has to be renewed. And if you fail to renew it, it doesn't disappear, but somebody else could claim it. And so these early ones on Namecoin could actually be, while not destroyed, lost. Somebody else, if you failed to renew it, somebody else could come and claim it, right? So these early kind of NFTs, of course, they weren't even NFTs back then. It was just digital items or collectibles, whatever you want to call them, have this kind of flaw. And so then we move on to like Bitcoin, and people tried stuff on Bitcoin, especially some early artists like Ray Myers. We're trying to really, how can we connect this on Bitcoin? But really, Bitcoin wasn't built for it, right? So people were trying these things called like colored coins. And then they had this thing called Counterparty, which you may have heard of, which is basically an L2 solution on top of Bitcoin. And that allowed a much better experience for the user to basically mint NFTs, quote unquote, and use them and trade them. And so you get projects like Spells of Genesis, which is one of the first gaming projects on blockchain where they did basically like trading cards that were a part of a game, a collectible game that you can still play today. And so those were like the first early tries. And finally, it basically culminated in Ethereum, the blockchain itself, which was basically built for this use case. And now we have the NFT explosion. And that's really due to, in a large part, Ethereum being the right platform and a platform that really works for NFTs and allows this easy trading, completely trustless trading, which doesn't take place on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has this kind of flaw in it where I want to maybe buy one of your assets, but there's this thing, if I don't get it there first, I not only lose the asset, but I might lose my Bitcoin, right? And so it wasn't a perfect solution back in the day. And so Ethereum really solved kind of all these early kind of efforts and mistakes and things that we don't like look for today as like the way we really want NFTs to work, which are trustless and I can buy and sell with complete confidence. That really wasn't possible on Bitcoin. Ethereum solved that. And so now we have kind of modern NFTs, and that's where we are right now. And who knows it's going to be in 10 years. I mean, people are like, no, this is what an NFT is now. And I'm like, well, give it time because it may change and something better may come along in the future.
I love how over time technology is a self-correcting mechanism. Like the
Absolutely.
issues of the first couple of iterations, we're just solving those left and right. And obviously that creates new issues, which then we can solve again. And hopefully we then can continue this innovative cycle and get to like the optimal product, whatever that may be. But given the fact that there were so many issues with these early tries, which they were critical, they were necessary. Nobody's
Absolutely.
I'm certainly not faulting people for trying. They didn't get it 100% right, but at least they tried, and they it was a stepping stone to get to where we are. But how do we understand those from a value perspective? How do we value them given the fact that there are issues? There are, it's not flawless. There are issues. How do we value them? And what is what's the source of their value? Why are they valuable still today?
Right. I think ones that kind of push boundaries or did things that were new or unique, those hold special places. So when you think of Spells of Genesis and the Nakamoto card, right, it being kind of the first gaming asset on a blockchain, that's a big deal, right? So for me and a lot of people in the space, we're looking at that. Okay, what's the first one? Okay, it's the Nakamoto card, right? That one, because it's the first one, holds like a special value. Or
But
ones that
why?
were,
But why? Is it just because it's like this is an artifact that is
well, I think, yeah,
precious?
from a collectible standpoint, just that
Mm.
alone will hold is the reason why. From a collectible standpoint, from a block, that's the way I and many collectors in the space are looking at it. We're looking at its base that this was an important step on the way to a modern NFT and what the modern NFT will become over the next decade. This was an important step that people will look back upon and say, ooh, that step in the chain was important. And that NFT, which has 200 of them, was an important step. And I think you already see that. The Nakamoto card, I think it was actually bottoming out a little bit, but 70 ETH for a Nakamoto card the other day. People have already kind of decided this is one of importance. So you see that quite a bit. And then I think the upside, which gets exciting, is how's this all going to play out over time, right? How are these assets going to be picked up and used by new games, new metaverses, new whatever that want to associate themselves with that particular project, that particular NFT or asset, and build on top of it? Because that's the beauty of NFTs, right? Interoperability, they can be used all over the place, right? So we've already seen it a little bit with kind of modern NFTs, Bored Apes, right? If Bored Apes are associated with Adidas or they're associated with Nike and Nike does something for Bored Ape holders, right? How this all works and provides additional benefits to the holder of that asset, that NFT. That's very exciting as well. But reality is we're just beginning that process.
So really the current value is based on, okay, this is like the Monet of NFTs, or this is this is like the first cave painting that we found and have preserved throughout thousands of years. In
Exactly.
in the future, it's going to have historical significance used to tell the story of this technology and to tell the story of the history of humanity and how we moved forward through the innovation life cycle.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
that's the way I'm looking at it. Um, could be wrong. I tell everybody who's interested in buying some of these things, look, man, I may be totally wrong, right? Blockchain may fail and NFTs might become nothing. That's possible. I don't believe it, but make your bets accordingly.
Well, I mean, it's also possible that the Mona Lisa becomes worthless. But what are the odds of that? Like,
That's right.
what are the true odds? And actually, as we've seen over time, fine art collections have been one of the few assets that actually retain an increase in value and appreciate in value over time. So there's, just based on looking at other types of assets that are of a similar nature, this is a good bet to make. It's a good, in my opinion, it's a good bet to make.
I think so. I mean, certainly there you mentioned art, and I want to tip my hat always to the artists because artists really drove this entire movement forward. Early work on Bitcoin, just trying because they recognized early, especially digital artists, recognized that this possibly could be a way to create that scarcity that they'd been looking for so long. And you think about it in the art space, we find, I mean, I know, and I've interviewed on my podcast numerous artists who were early. They were doing stuff on Bitcoin in 2014, right? And they'll tell you they minted NFTs on Bitcoin in 2015, and none of the collectors wanted the token, right? It had no value to them at that time, right? Because they just the awareness, the awareness that was needed, was still 5, 6, 7 years away, right? And I think at some point we're still early in that awareness cycle. 2021 obviously was the year of the NFT, and basically everybody heard about it, right? All your normie friends probably heard about it, but most of them still don't get it. They don't still understand what it is, right? So we're still very early in that cycle, in that awareness cycle, to assigning what the value of these things is going to be in 10 years. Could be exponentially. Obviously, that's what a lot of ours are betting on, is the exponential growth. It's just a real community, a global community awakens to the true nature of NFTs and blockchain.
What's interesting too about this idea of appreciation and exponential effects and network effects is that even though we do have like the original piece that was built on technology that is now by today's standards limited comparatively to what we have, we can still build on top of it. I mean, it would be so easy to wrap one of the old assets and put it on a different chain. I mean, it could exist originally where it exists, but you wrap it and you have proof of, I own this original thing, and I now have proof that I've wrapped it and put on this other chain, and then bam, we unlock a trillion x the functionality that we had before, and then we can build on top of it. I mean, I see a world where, okay, maybe it's a playing card from 2015 that existed on the whatever blockchain, and I know I just sound like an asshole because it is historically significant, but I just don't know it.
No, no, no.
But
I mean, this is already what you're describing is already happening, right?
mhm,
I mean, for example, there's this great service called Emblem Vault. Don't know if you're aware of it, but they
mm-mm.
basically allow cross-chain movement of your NFTs, right? You can take your digital asset from Bitcoin and you lock it in an Emblem Vault, right? And that Emblem Vault allows it to be traded on the Ethereum network, right? It's still there on the Bitcoin blockchain, but it's basically locked in this like software box and can travel around. I just explained it to normies. It's like, look, this travels around the internet. And so if somebody wants to use it in a game, and I can go to that
That's where I
game
was going with it.
with my Bitcoin asset and play it, but it's on Ethereum or it's on Polygon or whatever, this is happening. I mean, it's already happening now. What's being
Totally.
built to harness these is only just starting, right? This idea of how these are going to be used in games. I mean, you see it in gaming in itself. There are a lot of big companies aren't even sure if they want to touch the blockchain, right? Because of regulatory risks and all this sort of stuff. But I think the people who I talk with, and I may be a myopic kind of group of people, but we believe that this is going to be massive. I see it from my 15-year-old kid's perspective, who's playing Apex or Fortnite or whatever, right? I mean, he's on vacation right now. He spent $100 last week on Fortnite skins, right? Or on Fortnite coins or whatever it is, right? They give no, when those are able to be carried into other games and used across different platforms, does that create more value for everybody in the system? The answer is yes.
Yes.
It creates more value for him. It allows Fortnite, if they would get off their butt and actually do this thing, to make money every time they're sold. I mean, it's just like, it's a no-brainer. It's just a matter of time. In my view, it's simply a matter of time, because it creates so much more opportunity for not only the game developers, but for the players that just create all sorts of interesting market dynamics that I just think are super exciting.
Well, on top of that too, let's look back at history, right? So I'm 27. When my generation or people around my age were growing up, we were some of the first people who grew up with social media. And so then when we became of age to where we had careers, we had buying power, we have our own money, well, we're going to spend that in a way that was influenced by social media. We're used to buying things online. We're used to the world of Amazon, the world of social media. That's the world we grew up in. That's where we live in. So the next generation of the teenagers now, they grew up in a world where they're very comfortable buying digital assets. They're very comfortable buying skins, and they get it. And they may change skins 100 times a day in whatever game that they're in. And that's basically like what deprecated NFT technology is going to be. Like that is the stepping stone and the launch pad for them to understand this world. That's why gamers understand this world. That's why I'm so excited about the intersection of crypto and gaming, right?
Yep.
So I'm fascinated by this idea still, though, of being able to go and use a historically significant asset and then bring that into today's world. Like imagine if you own the Mona Lisa, being able to play as the Mona Lisa as a character in World of Warcraft or in Fortnite. Like you could take, whatever you would be the Mona Lisa with like a rocket launcher or whatever going around, and people know what you are. Like it's significant from a cultural standpoint. Like that to me is so fascinating, and I think that's where it's all heading. Is like everything matters, everything is integrated, and everything can be fluidly brought in and out of the metaverse, which I just believe is like the internet and the sum total of everything digital.
Yeah, I think I don't need to look farther than my niece, who is 9 years old and basically lives on blocks. I mean, she lives in that world. She'll have her phone set up next to her iPad or iPad. She's in Roblox, and on her phone, she's got a FaceTime going with 10 of her friends, and they're all in the same room together, right? And they're all doing God knows what in Roblox, right? The metaverse is already real for them. And I see it. I see it every time I look at my phone and see how many, hours I'm on each day, right? It's just a really crappy version of where the metaverse is going to be in 10 years, right? I mean, This is what it is. Right now, it's got to be a brick in my hand, right? Sitting in front of me. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, we all recognize, well, at least those of us who are thinking about it, recognize it's a really crappy interface, right? It's going to be way better. And I'm excited about it. There's for sure. But I mean, Roblox and what you said about the kids, they get it immediately. And I get it too. I get the idea of digital ownership. I'll put it this way, because this is kind of an easy one for people to understand if they haven't, if they don't get the idea of digital ownership. For those of you who are around for like Napster back in the day, Napster, while allowing great distribution, was terrible for musicians, right? It allowed your song to get out and a lot of people could hear it, but digital ownership, nobody knew how to attach it back then, right? Blockchain technology and NFT solve that. And I think you're seeing that right now in the music industry is just beginning to dip their toes in, and smart artists are beginning to dip their toes in because they recognize that it can not only be the song that lives on the blockchain and ownership, clear ownership and provenance can be passed, but then you can attach rights and ownership of copyrights and song royalties and all this sort of other stuff can be attached to that, and payments and everything can run straight through the blockchain as a way to be much more efficient and actually pay artists for their work. It's just I've seen so many artists just in the year I've really been invested in it. I know 20, 30 artists who are making a living at it now, who before were working for Adobe, making logos and stuff, right? They've been a digital artist their entire life, but never been able to make a living as a digital artist. And that's been transformative for them. So it's hard to be more excited than I am right now about the space because I've already seen it massively impact and changed artists' lives. And I know musicians are next. And then it'll just keep ticking off the boxes because this idea of ownership is an on-chain ownership and a distributed network is just, it's fantastic and it's revolutionary.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I want to kind of reshift us a little bit and talk about the chronology and the timeline, right? Clearly, you've studied the history of these things, and I believe we can learn a lot about what is, or at least we can make really good predictions about the future by studying the past and understanding the history. So based on what you've learned, based on what you've studied and your current understanding, where are we really in the timeline? And the specific timeline that I want to talk about is, and NFTs are going to play a critical role in this, and maybe it's worth even defining what role they'll play. But when I can either put on a pair of glasses or put on something, and I can like tap a button, and then I'm in a completely virtual world where I can fly, I can snap my fingers, and there's a dragon that is like my friend that I like ride around on, and we go fight monsters. And then like you and we both have dragons, so we're like, dude, let's go meet up in space, and we have like flying dragon space races. And it all just happens.
When's that gonna happen?
Yeah, seriously, because like that to me is like the end goal of like we can create anything with just by thinking about it and maybe speaking a few words, and then it exists and it's ubiquitous, and we can then fluidly move in between all the different games and the different mini worlds of the greater metaverse.
Right. It's interesting. And I know that's a lot of people's view of the metaverse, and that's probably most people's view of the metaverse. I take a little bit different and I preface it this is like when we were talking, like people. Oh, can you hear me okay? Because I know I cut out for a sec there. Do you have me?
Yep, I gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got the message on my screen. So my view of the metaverse is different than that, at least in the beginning. Like my view of the metaverse is just more how we interface with other people and digital items. So I'm actually more of the belief that an augmented reality becomes more prevalent first. That's my view.
Agreed.
In this way, and the only reason I say that is when Pokemon Go came out, and how successful that was, and running around with my then 10-year-old kid looking for Pokemon everywhere, and how that relates to when you see it, when you show an augmented reality something, like if you search panda bear on Google, right? Google will then give you the option to look at the panda in augmented reality and like place the panda bear on your sofa or whatever you want to do with it, right? And I've shown that to my 78-year-old mother, who literally doesn't even want a phone. That's how much she hates technology. but I show her that panda bear sitting next to her grandchild, and she goes absolutely crazy for that panda bear, right? So I know it cuts across all users of technology. People who want nothing to do with metaverse would be interested in augmented reality, because augmented reality, if we think about just our day-to-day life, if I can have an overlay of digital items on top of that reality, my reality is made better, period, full
Right.
stop. Like, it just is. And that's everything, and literally everything, from fashion to what my living room looks like literally everything, to the way I interface with my data and information, right? As I said, I'm interfacing with my data and information here right now, or on the screen in front of me. But if my data and information, it just lives in my life, that is a better interface than what we have right now, a much better interface. So I'm a true believer that this comes first. And I think that, Facebook and Apple, I don't know who's going to do it. I have insiders who tell me Apple probably, because Apple has better hardware, but who knows, right? Who knows who gets that right first? I think whoever gets the glasses right first is the biggest company on earth. Because, I mean, that's just my belief. I could be completely wrong, but that's the way I feel. I feel like whoever gets the augmented reality glasses right, just wins. Like, it's a game changer. Like the iPhone was a game changer. Like, that's the way I look at that. The metaverse, man, I still think it's got to be a decade or more away. The metaverse you're describing, the fully immersive, like I'm on. My kid's got I got him the Oculus. Like, we've been on there. It's amazing in that the space it creates for you and the worlds you can enter are amazing. But like, I still get sick going in that thing, right? I'm an old
Mhm.
man. I get sick when I go in there. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's definitely not where we want it to be. Okay,
It,
so
it,
you're thinking about a decade at least before we're at that that
I,
dream.
I, say, I say it like this, right? I was around for the internet boom, and I think everybody understood how big it was, but nobody, like zero people, understood that you and I were going to be able to have a show that could literally reach the entire population, like the entire world. Like, we didn't understand that, like at its core, because the tech and everything was millions of miles away. I mean, I remember discussion points about, oh, well, how could you possibly afford to have 1,000 channels of information? It would be too costly. It would cost the budget of the entire United States government. There's no way it could possibly happen, right? And at the time, every person on earth would have versions. It would be so great to talk to you, right? Those kind of pieces, all those things in the same way. I feel like none of us truly, we don't understand.
Hey, you're actually you're kind of cutting out for a second here. So I want to just give you an opportunity to reconnect from an internet perspective. So in the meantime, folks, this is what happens when you do shows live. This is how you know it's live. Seems like Adam is gonna hop out and hop back in here. There he is. Okay, so he's coming back in, and we'll get back. Okay, so where we just
How
kind of
much of
left
that?
off.
How much of that long-winded story did you miss?
Yeah, so where we left off was basically that we're going to be looking at augmented reality being kind of the intermediate step there. We're about 10 years away from the true metaverse. And back when you lived through the internet days, during the internet days, um, it was clear like this was going to be a game changer, but we didn't realize how much of a game changer it was going to be. And we
Yeah.
didn't realize that we could have our own shows that reach the entire population, and we could have it on 1,000 different channels at the same time, because previously that would have taken up as many resources as the buying power of the
Yeah.
United States in a year.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing, right? I mean, those of us who've lived through it, it's easy to overlook just how awesome this is, right? And I think, we are so early in the metaverse space that people are building, right? And I think that's the thing of it. You just have to build, and you build and make mistakes, or it doesn't work, and then other companies or other individuals come along and build more and build more, and we just layer failures upon successes, and all of a sudden in a decade or two maybe, um, we have something which you and I, whatever, for whatever reason right now, just can't see clearly. um, so yeah, I think that's where we are right now. It's exciting, that's for sure, and I'm happy to be a part of some teams that are building some stuff, and it's pretty exciting.
So let's talk about from the perspective of somebody who they realize that they're early. I actually wish I was even earlier. I think I was a little bit late to the party, which in 10 years will probably sound silly, but I wish I was earlier. But here we are, and at this point, the more I learn about it, the more I'm starting to think whoever can survive the longest is over time going to be fabulously wealthy. You're going to be integrated into the social elite of the next decade, 2 decades, just as a function of the amount of capital that you're going to be able to acquire because you just didn't die. Like you survived long enough to make it. What is your viewpoint on this? Having studied it for so long, and like,
Yeah.
what's your plan for not just survival, but actually being able to thrive as we continue on this ridiculously crazy and fun journey?
Well, I think what I've learned being in crypto long as I have, which is basically like 2014, started tracking Bitcoin and stuff like that, is that you have to basically, my investment strategy right now is acquire assets that I believe in, and then basically lose the keys to those assets for a decade. That's my current strategy, because everything I've seen in the crypto space shows me that that's actually the best strategy you can possibly have. The idea of trading yourself to wealth is just not the way most of us work. And you just, if you've paid attention at all, or know people in the space at all, almost everybody sold out too early. Almost everybody. The crazy people who just didn't sell and just held forever are the ones who got super wealthy and did incredibly well. I mean, we've all seen those memes and stuff about the guy who, sold his Bitcoin at 30 bucks or whatever, bought his Bitcoin at $3, sold it at 30, and then it went up to 80, and he was like, oh, I guess I'll never get in again. It's like, these stories, right? Oh, I missed the boat. I missed the boat at Ethereum at 800. Oh, that was crazy. I wish I guess I missed it. You know what I mean? And it's always there. If you believe this space, in the space like I'm, where this is a space for the next 2 decades or even 3 decades, right? It's not about, oh, how can I flip something in the next 6 months? No, how can I acquire as much as humanly possible right now and just hold it and do anything with it? So that's my strategy. I warn everybody, be careful, because it could be wrong. But when I'm acquiring historical assets, that's the way I'm looking at it.
So I would actually like to build on top of that. And with one of the criteria that I'm kind of a fanatic about, which is the idea of productive assets. I love the idea of buying things that you believe in for whatever reason that you believe in them. I have my own thesis. Everybody should have their own thesis. Probably should not just randomly ape into stuff just because you see somebody on YouTube pitching it to you, because you're probably their exit liquidity. But be that be that as it may, um,
True.
if you can get into things where not only can you hold them, but you can put those assets to work for you and make that money work for you to generate more money, that to me is the holy grail. And that's what one of the things that crypto gaming NFTs are going to give people the ability to do. Because let's marry these two ideas: historically significant NFTs, and let's say we niche down into historically significant crypto gaming NFTs. Well, those can be used to generate yield. So if you're able to hold them forever, and in 20 years they'll 1,000x in value, and in the meantime you were able to generate a yield on top of that, even if it's not significant, but it's still making you money just for, either you're staking it, or you set up a scholarship program, or there are new lending and borrowing protocols for NFTs that are coming out on the market. But if you can do those two things, find historical significance, buy and hold forever, and then put those historically significant assets to work for you to generate yield, turn them into a productive asset on top of that, my God, you've got
Well,
it.
that's what people are trying to do right now, right? I mean, this is what people are trying to figure out and build right now. I don't think I've seen it done. I mean, I don't even know what done perfectly would look like, right? I mean, I see, current modern NFTs trying to build in these kind of functionalities or these tokenomics into their projects. Will they work or not? I'm not 100% sure. The more confusing the tokenomics, the more my traditional Wall Street brain goes, starts pulling back and says, my scam warnings go up when I hear super complicated tokenomics to a project. Not to say they are scams, but when something doesn't make sense to me, like I'm literally confused. I know that most people are also confused. And when these founders are doing this just basically to create confusion, my alarm
Red
bells
flag.
go off. Yeah, red flags. Now that's not to say there isn't money to be made in them. And I know a lot of people who've made a lot of money in some of these NFT projects that are, basically games with tokenomics, all this tokenomics laid on top of it. You got to buy, you got to stake, you got to do all this sort of stuff. I know people have gotten super rich in the last year doing that stuff. Not to say you can't, but my brain just goes, "Ooh, what is this, man? What is this?" But I know a lot of people working on it, and I know people who are doing, stuff trying to take these more expensive or valuable NFTs and allow certainly loans and that sort of stuff is already happening. I mean, we're already seeing that with kind of high-end NFTs where you can get loans against them. So, that sort of stuff's happening too. And I know there's a lot of value in that, to avoid taxes and stuff like that, where you can simply take loans against them. That stuff's being built, but it's super early still. I mean, I don't think the market's really figured out kind of the way to do that yet. And I don't know if there's enough additional value to the NFTs themselves, meaning as an in-game asset or as an, that sort of asset where the returns are anything real right now, if you know what I mean.
Well, one example of how that actually could be the case of where it is real is if you need that particular asset to play a game. And by
Yep.
playing the game, you can then earn, and then whatever you're earning is then your yield. Like that to me is a
Yep.
pretty clear cut, a pretty clear cut flow of value. Where I'm questioning it is almost on the other side of like, okay, well then what is a historically significant one of those? Because if you need it to play and you're trying to go for mass market player adoption, well then you need a lot of them. And if there's too many of them, then is any one particular one historically significant? Maybe the first 10, the first
Right.
5, the first one. So that's kind of where I'm going with it, is almost on the other side of like, okay, well, how do these game assets and these crypto gaming NFTs, how do those become historically significant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. Like if you think about it, I'll give you an example from like early Bitcoin. So I told you about Spells of Genesis, right? There's this card game where they made these NFTs on Bitcoin, and they were used as a game. And there was this other guy named Christian who built another game. It was basically an app for your iPhone and stuff called Saratobi. And Saratobi allowed Spells of Genesis card holders to use a certain number of cards in the Saratobi game, right? What he was trying to do was basically tap into the users of Spells of Genesis, right? To bring them into his, platform, if you will. So I think you've already seen that in the last, couple of months with Bored Apes and people trying, other companies trying to tap into that market of those 10,000 holders of Bored Apes, as a kind of group, and looking at them as like a target market that they can then bring into their platform. So if you kind of expand that out to games, and I'll just take a simple one like Fortnite, right? If Fortnite actually, went to NFTs today, right? And each of the skins was its own NFT, what other games would be looking to bring in those NFTs and use them as in-game experiences in their games? Probably every game on earth, right? Just because of the sheer volume of those
The
gamers.
existing community, right?
That's right. And so when you think about, I'll take a historical asset like, let's take Twitter eggs, for example. Twitter eggs, super high end. There's only like 200 of them. Very valuable. Lowest prices might be 16 ETH for one, right? So I know that the holders of those have an extra 16 ETH at least, or up to like 90 ETH to buy one of those things. So these are high net worth individuals. What brands or games or anything would want to have access to those super high net worth individuals? Right? Everyone. And so this is the thing that hasn't been built yet, and I don't know exactly how it's going to be built. We're thinking about it in gaming terms because we kind of all understand that. But my larger view is of everything terms, right? Everybody wants access to those people, right? To people who are millionaires, right? If I could send them all an email, and I'm my wife has a soap company. If she's a soap company and could immediately be in contact with 200 high net worth individuals, what would that email list cost, right? What would it cost to reach them through, Forbes magazine, right? So it's just other ways of kind of taking this group of people and being able to target them with stuff. And that's just kind of my rough way of looking at it right now. And obviously I don't have it fully formed because nobody has it fully formed right now. But these are the kind of first steps about how this is going to be used. And we're thinking about it in gaming terms because we all get it. We all get gaming and we understand it. And we understand how powerful and impactful NFTs can be on gaming. But gaming is almost like the first step. We're so early, but gaming is kind of the first step into this metaverse.
Totally. One thing, this is something I think about a lot, and this is it's kind of my thesis for how it could become historically significant, strictly within the gaming sphere. Is, let's say you have a Fortnite skin that there are unlimited numbers of them, right? How does that become historically significant? Well, what if the historical significance came from the fact that only one skin can belong to one player? And so let's say you have a professional player who everybody loves, and they have skin number 77 of whatever this particular type of skin is. So let's say it's like a bunny hat, right? Well, so they have bunny hat number 77. Well, nobody else played with that bunny hat 77 while this one professional gamer has it. And just because of a function of who they are, that installs this rich history and this rich lore that is attached to bunny hat number 77. So then if let's say they want to cash out for whatever reason, they can sell bunny hat 77, and then this creates an on-chain history for these assets and for bunny hat 77. So maybe it's on the individual player level or the person level, the human level, that we install our own history, our own lore into these assets. So you can print 1 trillion of them, but there's only one that belonged to this one person. There's only one that had this history of this one person, and maybe that's how we get to the historical significance on the gaming side itself, and maybe that solves for Fortnite of how they can both have the ability to sell an unlimited number of skins, but also have the ability to make an individual skin still extremely valuable.
I love what you said there. I think it's a combination of two things. One is the actual number of skins is important, and I think I've seen that with historical NFTs. Strictly volume is important. And when I talked to my kid about Fortnite specifically, there were these older skins back in the old days when Fortnite wasn't popular that are now considered very rare skins within Fortnite, right? And every kid who sees that skin knows that's an OG skin because not many people were playing Fortnite when they released them, right? So I think smart gaming companies will do this kind of force rarity and scarcity of skins and of gaming assets just as a way to create it creates inherent value. So that's one thing. But I love what you said, and I've talked about this with a lot of people. A way to expose who has previously owned the NFT, the provenance of the NFT, is fantastic. I don't really know anybody who's building that yet, but it is something that I'm convinced will be very, very prominent and very easy to see in the future. Because if I bought my NFT from Gary V, which I have in the past, or I've sold it to, Daryl Morey, the president of the 76ers, which I have in the past, like those are things that make it exciting, right, for the collector. That I sold it to the president of the 76ers and he bought my NFT is cool. Like it's really cool, right? And if I bought it and that has a history and there's somebody famous in there or interesting collectors, all that sort of discoverability. We're just really early in that process, but I think you've hit on something that's going to be really, really cool to see going forward.
Well, I think so too. And I think it also increases the value through the power of association, where you can now say, as part of your reputation, that you have a connection to Gary Vee or the owner of the 76ers. And you can prove it. You can prove
Yep.
it. Like, for example, one of the things that I think is totally rad that is like something I don't really talk about is one of my mentors is the last living protege of Dr. Napoleon Hill, right? Who wrote Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the best-selling self-help books of all time. Well, Dr. Napoleon Hill's mentor was Andrew Carnegie, who was, one of the richest people in the history of humanity with Carnegie Steel, so on and so forth. I can't tell you how valuable that would be for me to be able to show that on chain of like a lineage of mentors, and through the power of association prove that, like, hey, I'm working my ass off, and the actions that I took then led to me being able to be mentored by this incredible historical person. And then it's just baked in, instead of me having to say this thing and people being like, first of all, I don't know if I believe you, and second of all, like, who cares? I don't really understand who those people are. Like, it solves for
It's
that.
yeah, it solves for that. You've touched on something that actually is really important. It hasn't figured out yet. So if you can build some stuff, this is like, how do you connect? And yes, it can be done through wallets and stuff, but how do you show it? Especially when you're dealing with a lot of anonymous people. I deal with and work with anons every single day in the space. It's one of the things that's been really eye-opening over the last year is that some of my best friends are anonymous. And how do we move into this new world? And I can't wait to see what people build, because it is really important to be able to build things that tell who people are, even if they're anonymous, to build in this idea of lineage, or like you said, who your contacts are, and they can verify you, you can verify them. It's all really important. And we're just getting started there.
I think so too. Well, Adam, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing a significant amount of your time. I know your time is very valuable, and there's a lot of history to be studied and understood, and a lot of future to be thought about. So I appreciate you taking time from your work to come talk with me on the show. Thank you.
I, I appreciate it, Ben. Thanks very much, man.
You're the man. Do you have any last thoughts or ideas or comments that you want to share with the audience here?
Well, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter, Adam A. McBride on Twitter. We get into historical NFTs. I basically just do historical NFTs. You can jump in my Discord if you want to learn more. There's a lot to learn. It is a constant, ever-changing field. It's still being very much discovered. I'd give us another year or so to basically dig up all the stuff. But telling that story is what I'm dedicating my life to right now. So thanks
Love
for
it.
having me on.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for coming on. And everybody watching and listening, thank you very much. I will see you all on the next episode.